we're sort of rebuilding and redesigning the podcasts and these live presentations that I'm doing. I just want to make sure that they're effective, they're getting to the right people, and the message is important and correct. I'm Tom Young, and we're here for a podcast called Money Shifts, and I will load this onto Spotify afterwards. They've changed their format, and I'm lost in how to get it set up. Used to be easy. Go on, click, and the podcast would be live, but they changed the format. We're going to talk today about a lot of things. I was invited to speak at Right to Liberty in Beaver County, Monday night, August 12th. And I'm going to talk about everything from Nasara Jasara, the Great Awakening, cryptocurrency, and a lot of things that I have been following. I want to bring people up to date. But that's Monday night in Bridgewater. If you want to know the location is at his place. It's at 908 Market Street, Bridgewater, Pennsylvania. Monday night, the 12th at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I'm Tom Young, and I'm here. We start every presentation with a prayer for everybody in the world. Everybody's been touched by COVID. There is so much conspiracy theories and everything going on. And I talked to somebody yesterday, that him and his wife both have recently had COVID, and he's pretty much over it right now. Wasn't a serious thing. It was like a head cold, he said. I've had it 3 times, and I don't know what they want to call it, but it was no different than any of the times in my life that I've had the flu, and you get over it. So I'm not a medical person. I'm not going to judge or make any comments about COVID, but people have had their lives touched. They've had their health impaired. They've lost loved ones. So we pray for all of those that there would be a healing. We pray for their sorrow. We pray for the loved ones who have been lost. We pray for Ukraine and Russia, that somehow these men would find wisdom and get over their stupidness and end this ridiculous war going on there, because nobody even wants to admit what was the reason for it. Why? Nobody's talking about that. We hear a lot of things about everything from biolabs in Ukraine to membership in NATO and on and on and on. But nobody really is sitting down and talking. It's almost like they want war to happen. Maybe they're making money off of the war machine that makes the bullets, the rockets, and all those things that go on. So they like wars and like ongoing wars. If you want to listen to a good little video on YouTube, it's called The Banker, and Montague is the guy. He's sitting in a big stuffed chair with a black nylon robe on, reading a book called Huxley. You'll know it when you see it. He has black rimmed glasses. You might have to hunt for it for a while in order to find that video called The Banker, because there's several other The Banker videos that have been created, but they are not the same. We pray for Israel and what is going on there. It was literally preposterous what Hamas did on October 7th in Israel, and nobody's talking about that. They're all talking about, how bad off it is for the Palestinians. I don't know. I don't judge, but truth is being hidden. That is my opinion. Truth is being hidden for an agenda, and that is the problem. And that's with everything that we do. I'm going to talk about some of that today because the Federal Reserve is bankrupt. The United States of America, the Federal Reserve, as I understand and when I've read, they're losing $1 trillion every 90 days. So if they were a bank, they would be in default. And I'll talk about that today, and I'll talk about why and how and what's going on in our society with the social engineering that goes on between the IRS, our tax code, and now the Federal Reserve, and understanding what financial engineering really is. I want to start with a quote. Always want to be positive. So I have a quote for today. And our quote for today is by Albert Einstein. If you look out to describe the truth, if you are out to describe the truth, leave elegance to the tailor. Interesting quote. If you are out to describe the truth, leave elegance to the tailor. And that's sort of what we're talking about, because so much of what's going on, how do we get to the truth? You know, the attempted assassination of Trump a few weeks ago, and now they still don't have any answers, and they have conspiracy theories going wild on what's going on. Even Wray, the head of the FBI, called what hit his ear a fragment and not a bullet, but then they admitted, yes, it was a bullet. Obviously, it was a bullet because it killed a gentleman and wounded two other people behind the president as the bullets went past the president and didn't hit him. It is becoming very asinine, which is what is going on in our country. And I am sure that it's going on around the world in the same way. So what's up with the Federal Reserve? Let's talk a little bit about history. Let's go back 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, and then 15 to 20 years before that, the interest rates were pushed down to zero. Some places it was minus. So the bank would charge you a fee that's minus interest in order to hold your money. And during that period of time, the Federal Reserve, in their operation of printing money from nothing and using that printed money to buy assets out of the marketplace, to put cash into the marketplace so that there would be more cash for the banks to loan out to other people. And what was going on? Well, what were they buying? They were buying bonds that had low interest rates, 1%, 2%, 2.5%, low interest rate bonds, because a bond is a debt instrument. So in this debt instrument, whether it's issued by the governments or a corporation or municipalities, it is a contractual relationship, and it has a stated interest rate attached to that bond. Now, banks have what is called Tier 1 money. Tier 1 money in a bank is the core reserve of the bank. If you remember in studying about 1929, when the banks crashed at 29, there was an ultimate run on the banks. And when everybody, all of us today, if we went to the bank today and said, I want my money, how much money do you really think is there? If you're lucky, it would be 5 to 10%, 5 to 10 cents on the dollar is what is in the bank that you have access to, because that money is loaned out in your neighbor's mortgage, the college kid's car loan, all of those things, that money moves in loans. The banks, under fractional banking, create, on average, $7 out of every dollar you deposit into the bank. So if everybody went to the bank and wanted their money, there is no gold backing the money. There is no assets backing the money. It is leveraged through multiple times with assets. So when you make a loan at the bank, you have to put up collateral. Whether it's your home, your car, whatever it is, you have to put up collateral. The bank takes that collateral, goes to the Federal Reserve window, and 2 years ago, they were able to borrow money from the Federal Reserve at 1/4% interest. And then they would get back about 95 cents on the dollar, because they have to set aside 5% as a reserve. That's the Tier 1 money in the bank. So they get 95 cents on the dollar, they loan it out in position 2. They take in an asset as collateral, they take it to the Federal Reserve window, make loan 3. You get the idea. So on average, they create 7 loans out of 1 deposit from you and I. So by you and I doing business at the banks, borrowing money at the banks, we are actually part of the cause of inflation. By utilizing the banking system versus the family money farm concept, Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept, where we take control of the banking concept in our own lives and run our own money. We run it through life insurance companies, through dividend-paying mutual life insurance companies, through specifically designed life insurance policies that are focused on high cash value that we can leverage with the insurance company and borrow from the insurance company. Our money is still growing and earning dividends, so the dollar immediately is doing two things. We have now leveraged the dollar, but at the same time, we're still earning interest and growth on our dollar. But when that happens, the insurance companies cannot do fractional banking. They can't create a second, third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh loan out of the loan that we made at the insurance company. Nelson always had a dream of 10%. 10% of all the money done in banking, the banking concept, moved to individuals through their own life insurance contracts. Everybody has been so brainwashed to focus on, well, the life insurance policy doesn't have a big rate of return. No, it has a great rate of return because it gives you multiple uses of your dollar and provides other benefits that you can't get in any other way, which allow you at retirement time to leverage the death benefit on top of your retirement money and could allow you to receive as much as 40, 50, or 60% more retirement income from your money simply because that life insurance with a huge death benefit is sitting there giving you the permission to spend the money. If you want to know more about that, you can get my book, The Family Money Farm, The CFO Project, and Financial Mastery Coaching, The Blueprint, which is going overhead right now. You can get that book for free by going to cfo-project.com, right there, going over, put in your name and email address, and we'll send you an email with a link to download both of those books. If you're truly interested in souping up your financial future and making it work to your benefit in the most efficient manner, that's what is in those books. I have clients that have been with me for 30 plus years. I've been in this financial business for 49 years. And I have seen people's lives change by showing them how to save astonishing amounts of money and create amounts of wealth that they would have never believed was possible. So the Federal Reserve, what's going on? So during the last 15, 20 years, they have been buying bonds, printing money and buying bonds in their portfolio. Their portfolio was around 9 trillion a year or so ago. They have reduced it. It's around 8 trillion right now. But these bonds are low interest rate bonds. So inflation appeared to be getting out of hand. And so the Federal Reserve stepped up and started to raise interest rates. They went from 0.25% about 2 years ago to 5.5% right now. They caused several banks to default, one of them being the SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank in California, 12th largest bank in the country, to default because their tier one assets, which are made up of investment grade bonds and some life insurance cash value, the bonds went underwater because when you raise the interest rate, the value of the bond goes down. It has a fixed interest rate. So if you had a bond that had a 2% coupon and you wanted to sell it, I'm a buyer. But I can go buy a brand new bond that's paying me 4.5%. Why would I buy your bond that's only paying 2%? You would have to discount your bond by maybe as much as 50%. So that means you just lost 50% of the purchasing costs of that bond. So that value of the bond goes down. Now, that is what happens in banks. That value goes below a required watermark, a minimum required amount of assets to back the bank's loans, etc. If that value goes under the watermark, they are in default, and therefore the bank defaults. Well, the Federal Reserve, if they were a bank today, they would be in full, complete default. So does that mean the Federal Reserve is bankrupt? I would think so, because if they were a bank, they would have been taken over by the Federal Reserve as a defaulting or a defaulted bank. Where is this going to end? I have no idea. But right now, the Federal Reserve, as I have read and understand it, are losing close to $1 trillion every 90 days. Now, that coincides with the philosophy of our government that is spending on average $2 trillion more than they are taking in on an annual basis. So they are borrowing more than $2 trillion a year. So all this money that they're sending overseas to foreign governments, to everything going on, guess what? They're running the credit card up because they have to borrow money in order to give all this money away. So I believe we are coming to the end of the road. I've talked about rainbow currency. I've talked about the BRICS, okay? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and 40 more countries that are creating the new currency that they want to create. And Saudi Arabia has now not signed an agreement that they have followed for 50 years, making the US dollar the petrocurrency, which means around the world, anytime you buy or sell oil or crude oil, it's all done in US currency. So there is a whole hoard or mountain of trillions of dollars around the world in capital that was necessary to purchase, for countries to purchase oil. That is now over. It's been 3-4 weeks since this happened. And it's going to take a while, but when the chickens come home to roost, when all of that capital that is sitting around the world in all these foreign countries, and these countries realize that, I'm not going to use this anymore to buy crude oil for our country or our businesses, those dollars are eventually going to flow back to the United States. When those dollars show up at our doorstep in large, large amounts, that is when we possibly will see inflation that has never happened in America before. Inflation in Venezuela right now is about 50% a year. Could you only imagine that? 50% a year. And we're only dealing with 5, 6, 7, 8, based on what the government's saying in the last couple of years. I remember in 1980, it was 15.6 under Jimmy Carter. And in George Bush Sr. in 1990, it was 12.4. So we've seen some the right to liberty. Let me get my pushback on there. There it is. Right to Liberty meeting. And I'm a speaker there. And I'm going to talk about the Great Awakening, the Sara Jasara, the path forward as I see it, my interpretation of it. And we're going to talk about the Club of Rome and climate change and who's funding that. Would you believe it goes back to George Soros, is one of the key funders of climate change thinking. So we need to talk about a lot of things. And you and I, the citizens of the USA, we have to stand up because election day is coming 92, 93 days away. We need to be aware and do the right thing in November. So God bless you all. Get my book, The Family Money Farm, The CFO Project, and Financial Mastery Coaching, 2 books. Go to cfo-project.com, put in your name and email address. We'll send you a link by email to be able to download both of those books cover to cover. God bless you all, and we will see you again here in a few days. I want to get back on my regular schedule of having weekly podcasts. God bless.